From Social Prosperity Partners, this is Community Catalysts.
Be proud of what you're doing. Let's go. Let's get out there and start telling people all the awesome things you're doing, and then let the chips fall what they will. So we're not really competing for children. I never really thought about it that way. I thought about it as we're advocating an option for them that they may or may not choose. Simple, but we have to present the option to them.
Welcome to Community Catalysts. I'm your host, Matt Lehrman, and this is the podcast where we explore what local leadership really looks like in communities across the country, not in theory, but in the real everyday work of building trust, solving problems, and shaping a future that people from all walks of life can believe in and want to help build together. Whether you were elected, appointed, or hired to serve a town, a city, a county, a school district, or if you lead through a nonprofit or some other community-based organization, this podcast aims to bring you insight, encouragement, and practical ideas from people who speak from their own firsthand experience and hard-earned expertise about what it takes to be effective and successful in civic leadership. My guest today is Brian Stevens, co-founder and CEO of Caissa K12, based in Memphis, Tennessee. Brian brings a deeply strategic mindset to one of the most urgent challenges facing local leadership today: how public school districts can respond and compete in a time of rapid change, growing choice, and shifting public expectations. I've been looking forward to this conversation because Brian doesn't just talk about adapting. He works alongside school districts to help them do it with clarity and urgency and purpose. Brian Stevens, welcome to Community Catalysts.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I've been nervous and excited about this.
So first things first, did I pronounce the name of the company right? It's an interesting spelling. I'm not sure I got it.
You did great. So Caissa is the like the goddess or the patron saint of like chess and strategy. So if you ever played chess as a kid, or you might hear them say, Caissa, help me, right? So they're paying homage to this goddess of strategy, right? So that's where the name comes up. But I love that people try to pronounce it. I've heard it all kinds of ways. At least they're talking about it.
Caissa.
Yep, that's it.
For people who are playing at home, I should have just given them the play at home version first.
Yeah, that's right.
Brian, let's start a little bit about your origin story. I understand you've got a background both in psychology and law.
Well, it's interesting. I think we're all kind of made up of all these little buckets of, throughout our life. And so it probably is, I hate talking about myself, but I think it's important for people to kind of understand where I'm coming from and why we're doing what we're doing. So people can start to validate whether or not we're crazy or not, right? So I'm a product of public schools. I think that's important. And the military saved me. I would probably be a very good drug dealer or criminal or so. I don't know what I would be, but my life as a young kid didn't have tons of direction and all those things, but the military really saved me. And so I was in the Army first, and that paid for college. And then I went to law school and became a psychologist. And so that's kind of the academic background, so to speak. But I'm more of a Lego guy. I like to build things and create things. And so I started building some companies and sold a couple, and a couple didn't go too well. We can talk about it, offline, but everybody has their little rocky roads. And I was on the election commission here in Tennessee for a bit. And so, got into politics a little bit. And then we started this company 17 years ago. And, and this has been a lot of fun since then. So yeah, this has been my main focus for about 17 years.
So tell us about Caissa K12. What exactly does the company do?
Our sister company, who has its origins in political campaigns, issue campaigns, and crisis management issues, we represent a lot of school districts. And so I think there was one year I dealt with 3 or 4 school shootings in one year. Tragic, really complex stuff. But we started getting to know school board members, and we were running issue campaigns for them to get voters to vote yes on a tax referendum or whatever. And a school board member, I think it was 9 years ago, Brian, can you recruit students? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. You get voters. Can you go up there and share the good things about our school district, because we're losing students, and they're losing students because of certainly lowering populations. Right? Less children being born than there used to be, but also school choice. And this school board member wasn't against school choice. He just wanted to kind of put their best foot forward. So we tried it out over 2 years. We did some pilot programs, some testing, and we really liked the work. And we really thought all the non-traditional public schools, think private schools and charter schools, homeschools, et cetera, are really putting their best foot forward. They're advertising, they're marketing themselves, they're selling their services, but public schools are just training the babies. They're just training the kids, and they're not really out there beating their chest going, look at all great programs. And so they really didn't have a company to represent them. And so over the next 9 years, we completely transferred all of our time, all of our energy into exclusively representing public schools, recruiting students back to their schools.
I want to make sure I understand this, Brian. The work that you were doing was very much public relations oriented kinds of things. And at some point, someone said, can you apply this to how public schools attract or retain students for themselves, given the other competition?
Well, no, we were never a PR shop or a marketing shop. We were a campaign shop. And I think that's a really good question, Matt.
Yeah, explain what a campaign shop is.
So a vote has an end date. If it's November 2nd, it's November 2nd. There's either a winner or a loser on November 2nd, right? You can't keep campaigning the day after. You've lost. Go run something else. And so people that have to run campaigns or have had very tight deadlines understand that marketing can be great. It's great for reputation building, but it can't go on forever. You've got to win or lose on a certain date. Well, kind of like school enrollment. First day of school. The children have either enrolled and show up or they haven't. And so we started to contact parents and caregivers and say, hey, this school could be right for you, and walking them through all this, just like you would a voter, right? Just like you're trying to, hey, we want to elect Matt to, be the mayor, and here's his attributes and why he's great and awesome. And the competition can do the same thing. It's the American way, right? Competition. So we just presented what makes the school system awesome, and parents would either choose or not choose to go there. But there was a finite date that they either showed up to school or they didn't. So the way we do it for a school system is we win if they win. If the student shows up, we get paid, and the school district gets paid, because I don't know if you know this, but school district gets paid based on the number of students that enroll. Like the money follows the student.
Right.
Right. Okay. So a lot of people didn't know that. And then if the child ends up in a better school for them, then it's like a win-win-win. So we take our campaign experience and translate it into enrolling students.
Was that a radical change of mindset for people in public education, that they were having to compete for students?
Terrifying. It's terrifying, resistant, scared. And, some of the leaders saw the change of school choice coming. This is, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, and they could see it was coming. And so it's kind of like a Blockbuster or Netflix. Some of the districts were like Netflix. They saw that we're going to go to mailing the movies, and then we're going to go to streaming the movies, and they stayed with the times. And some of them were just, it was scary. They're not interested in marketing themselves. They just got an education to educate the children. Tons of resistance. It's only, I bet, been in the last year and a half or so where we start to get more phone calls than we place for business, because school choice is just blowing up nationwide now. So people are getting less resistant, but you got people that have been, Matt, in the school district for 30 years. They don't want to change. No, who wants to change? So yeah, it's absolutely hard. It's super hard to change.
Help me by reflecting on what you've learned about working with people in the public education system. What has to happen from their perspective to kind of awaken to the possibility that you have to compete for students? You're not just an amenity like water or trash pickup in your community that you can just assume exists there for everyone.
Yeah, you're not a monopoly anymore. So we've broken up the monopoly of the school system. And, a lot of people would say, you got two kinds of schools of thought. One is, well, school choice will make everyone better, will make education better for all the students, and use the money more effectively. It's a great argument. In theory, I love that argument. I believe in school choice, by the way. I want my family, your family, to have a decision. But that's it. We're kind of getting conned. We're kind of getting lied to, because public schools have many more barriers on how they operate than all these other ones. So you have, all these laws, and really good laws, by the way, like Title I, Title VI, all these, Americans with Disabilities Act. We can't discriminate. We've got to educate every child. We had to feed the children. All these different rules create massive bureaucracy headaches and workload for public schools that the other ones don't have to do. So the other schools can be more nimble. And so you kind of going back to your question, Matt, is like, what's the thought? Well, the first thought is, well, I'm going to just do whatever and we're just going to lose students and that's it. Well, most school districts are getting away from that. They want to compete, but their hands are kind of tied behind their back, so to speak. And so they need to start getting into the game of lobbying to change the laws. And so let's kind of make this a little bit more of a story for you. So you heard of No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind. It was big when we were younger. Several presidents got behind those kind of different initiatives, but there were different laws out there. And the whole theory was, we're going to make public schools great. We're not going to leave any child behind. But what that did was it made standardized testing much more important in the eyes of everyone in the schools in order to get money, in order to keep kids. So we started to teach towards taking tests instead of problem solving. Now, who do we blame? We blame the principals and the superintendents and the teachers. It wasn't their fault. It was the politicians. The politicians meant well. We're going to standardize education across the entire nation. We're going to have standardized testing. Well, some people are better at taking tests. Some people are worried about having their power and their electricity turned on that night and can't do extra homework. It doesn't make them dumber. It just means they have more barriers. But now we've taught teachers to teach to the test instead of teaching kids problem solving. But it's not the teacher's fault. So we need to go back and uncork some of those laws and allow public schools to really do what they do best, which is teach the children, not teach to the test. And I was down in Florida speaking with some state legislatures, and I said, look, I got about 100 employees here, give or take, and I've yet to ever give one of them a standardized test. I've never given one of them a standardized test. Why are educators forced to do this? But they want some sort of benchmark. And so they're resistant, but they don't have all the right tools to compete. And that's the scary part about all this for them, I think.
Tell me all the things that a public education system should be thinking about spending money on in order to compete, because I want that to be clear. I don't think you're talking about just advertising.
No, but certainly you've got kind of two fronts, right? You got an air campaign and a ground campaign, right? You want people to know that you're a good district. Now, how do they do that? Well, people are busy. Just like in an election, people are trying to pick who to choose. They talk to their friends. They look at the numbers, they look at the math, they look at reviews. But if they're getting penalized because of really low test scores, are they also taking, is that a population that's been depressed for a lot of years? Are they making improvement despite the low socioeconomic issues? Are we getting them where we want them to be as an adult? People don't have time to look at all those factors, right? So they're just well, the test scores are this, and parents want really two things fundamentally. They want their child to be safe, number one, and then they want their kid to be successful, whatever that means. Maybe it's college, maybe it's military, maybe it's trade school, but they want those two fundamental things. And every parent wants that for their child by and large. So what a public school is competing against, first off, is the appearance that their child's not going to be safe. Well, I sinned as a young man, and we sent our daughter to private school. We were both, my wife and I were young lawyers. We finally paid off our law school debt, and we thought that's where you went. This is, before I became saved. And we're looking at this and we're like, well, it's a private school. It's going to be safe. It's going to be safe. Man, she got more disgusting pictures texted her by boys because they all had cell phones. She got offered more drugs at the private school because they all had money. There was nothing safe about this school. We moved her to public school and all those issues went away, but it was the false appearance of safety that we jumped on until we actually went and did the homework. So a public school, first thing they have to overcome is they've got to present an image of, this is a safe school. We care about safety. We're going to project safety. We're going to take care of you. And there's not a person that works in a school system, superintendent down, that doesn't care about your child's safety. They all do. So they've got to overcome that systemic view, right, of what's going on nationally. And then you think little teeny intimate environments, like, a little private school or a little charter school that's smaller, that didn't make it any safer. It just makes it smaller. But they've got to overcome it. So then what are the other things they've got to overcome? Will my child be successful? Like, if my child goes to school, are they going to be successful? So you'll see all these schools advertise. Oh, we got, this many in scholarships to college. We have this many Rhodes Scholars, or whatever these awesome things are. We got a bunch of straight A students. But the schools need to address, will my child be successful? Not children in general, right? Meanwhile, you have these massive marketing arms. Public schools, charters, these non-traditional schools will spend as much as 30% of their budget advertising and marketing to parents. First-class tours. I've seen them give iPads away gas cards for transportation because they know when they get that student, all the money that was going to that public school now goes to them. So let's don't act like they're not businesses. They are absolute businesses, and they're just doing a better job, selling you on going there, right? And so public schools got to at least spend 1 to 2% of their budget. And they, advertising and letting parents know what makes them awesome. And they're busy educating. I don't think that excuses it, but they got to get in the game of competition for sure.
What's the advice you give? What are the skills that you teach to either administrators or school board members who are going to, in order to compete, are going to have to still make some tough decisions, and they are going to incur the wrath? There's going to be opposition. How do you prepare them to deal with that?
Yeah, it's rough. And I'm not trying to make it sound easy. It's not easy. And so I think about like different personality traits. And so my latest book, I kind of outlined, you've heard of a troll, right? Like a person online that just, blah, 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 blah. You got to learn to ignore the trolls, right? Well, some people are dragons. They love to fly in, burn every good idea down. Don't close the school, don't do anything. And then when it's time to build and create, they fly away, right? You have the Karens, right? They just, you have helicopter parents that won't let it go. What the leaders have got to do is learn that you can't let about 12% of the population dictate what happens for the best, for the betterment of the most number of children. But the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. And this is one of the pain points that public schools have over non-traditional. The school boards are elected. And that elected person doesn't want to get yelled at a soccer game or at a grocery store. They want to get reelected. And so oftentimes they fail in a leadership capacity because they want to get reelected. Well, I would hope that the people would rally around a school board member that made a tough decision that bettered kids, increased their education, and made sure they got reelected to that office and higher office. That would be ideal if I had a magic wand, which I don't have, right? But it's funny. It's like the school board members that want to do the most end up getting kicked out of office because they just don't go on to get along. They're actually trying to make positive change. I wish we supported those people more.
Brian, the answer to my question that you just said essentially is, if you're doing the work of betterment for your entire community, for your entire school district, then you should take some solace, you should take some comfort in the idea that you're doing the right thing, the noble thing. When I go out and visit with people who are elected, appointed, or staff in public education around the country, often after I do a keynote, I will be invited to lead a breakout session, and I just do a discussion, and I use my online technology. People can use their smartphones to vote. And a question that I commonly ask is, what's the level of stress that you feel personally as a result of your school board responsibilities, of your civic responsibilities? And I can pretty much guarantee, and I've done this all across the country for people in cities and towns and also people in school boards, somewhere between a third to 40% will say that their stress level is high or very high. And very high is defined as unmanageable, like it's actually out of control. And so I hear you when you say, yes, do the right thing, focus, be there for the right reasons, get this done. But man, competing for students, making the decisions that you're calling for actually takes a personal toll on the people who are making those decisions. And that's why I'm just going to press you one more time and ask, how do you counsel those people to deal with the personal toll, the emotional toll that they incur for actually going out on that limb?
The one thing, and it's a repetitive issue, right? And I kind of think about it when I put my little psychologist hat on, right? I think about it in two aspects. One is we got to learn to stop listening, and we've got to learn to not review comments, not go online, and kind of ignore those people. If it's bots or real people, whatever it is, that'll just psychologically get in your head. I talk a lot about the use of social media and how everyone knows, everyone will be happy if you stop paying attention to it. So especially the ones in leadership, you got to stop paying attention to those things to the best of your ability. And we got to keep working on. On the other side, I want you to be proactive and start to advocate for what you're doing right. And so there historically like 7 responses to stress: crisis, ignore, defend, fight, counterattack. I'm a big fan of counterattack. Like my wife yelled at me and I was like, oh yeah, well you slept with my brother. I don't have a brother. That's just a joke. But you counterattack, right? And none of those are successful at decreasing stress and anxiety. There's only one box, and it's a logical box, and it's a non-emotional box, and it's to advocate. And it's to speak up on what you're doing right constantly. And the more that you get to tell people, well, let me tell you why I did this. Let me tell you why this is an important thing. And you start to ignore them. There's almost like a little neurological switch that happens in your head where it starts to make you have a thicker skin and empower you a little bit more. And a lot of stress comes from not being empowered. A lot of stress comes from the ability that you feel held hostage or you feel trapped. And if we can get them to feel like you're not trapped, you are in control of advocating for what you're doing. We want you to go advocate for it. And then you got to go say it so many times, you're sick of saying it, right? You just got to keep advocating for what you believe in. And that stress level actually will reduce because you're doing something positive.
Is this a psychological phrase that the best defense is a strong offense?
Yeah, and I don't try to use the word offense anymore. It feels too competitive.
And yet you're talking about competing for students.
Well, I'm talking about right now advocating for what you're doing right. Right? If you advocate for what you're doing right, it doesn't mean you're tearing down other people and what they're doing right. I didn't say we're attacking charter schools or private schools. Let them do their thing. But you should advocate for what you're doing in your life, what you're doing in your elected role, what you're doing as a teacher. Then people can make a choice. So we're not really competing for children as much as we're presenting a choice. We're advocating for why we're a good choice. And the parents then make a decision. And it should be personal. Man, if this one's got a good band program, this one's got a great extracurricular activity, this one's got a great science program, well, I'm going to pick the science program because little Emily really loves science. But if we don't let them know we have a great science program, we're not advocating for anything, are we? We're just fingers crossed, hope they figure it out on their own.
Your message there is to advocate is empowerment, right? To actually own your situation and to assert it and to push it out there and not just be on the receiving end of whatever criticism anyone throws at you.
And you mentioned earlier, Matt, about like how do the superintendent, how the C-suite, all these leaders feel? Well, for years they were defensive. They're just on their heels, and it feels like they're just getting punched left and right with every new thing that a politician. Well, we need you to schools to do this, and we need schools to do this, but we're not going to give you any money to do all that stuff. We just want you to keep doing and doing and doing. And now we're going to have school choice and vouchers, take all your students, but we're not going to let you compete freely. Yeah, that'll put you in a defensive posture. That'll make you feel like you can't win. And what I'm really trying to, advocate is that they can advocate. They have a lot to sell. So I think the first step in this journey is be proud of what you're doing. Let's go. Let's get out there and start telling people all the awesome things you're doing. Let the chips fall where they will. So we're not really competing for children. I never really thought about it that way. I thought about it as we're advocating an option for them that they may or may not choose. Simple. But we have to present the option to them.
What do you think keeps school leaders, that prevents them from making the mental shift or thinking about advocacy as such an important part of their function?
Every person's complex, right? Everybody's a little different. I'll tell you some of the reasons why we've not been able to advocate for schools. Like we thought we were going to work with them and it kind of fell apart at the end. Well, one is the superintendent or the board loves it. They want to do it. And they have 10,000 other things. And the people down there, it just wasn't a priority to them. And so maybe it took us a year or 2 years and maybe we'll get back to them. But they just got busy. I understand people get busy. I probably forgotten things all the time too. This is just it's not like having toilet paper and food and buses. If you don't do it, you won't notice it for years, but if you don't cut the grass, it. So you got to kind of deal with those front burner issues first. And they have so many front burner issues that we try to take the weight of this back burner issue off their table, but they just sometimes just don't think about it as often as they should. Sometimes the people in the school districts don't understand it. And they don't understand, they don't like having to compete. Like it frustrates them that the world is the way it is. So they're resistant. It's not everybody, and it's getting less out there, but we've had people that have been like, we don't need this, we can do it ourselves. Well, maybe that's true, right? And I applaud them for doing that. What I found is teachers are best to teach, not to recruit. Principals are best left to lead, not to go door to door and ask parents. They should do some of those things, but everyone's busy. And so it's really a timing issue under most cases. Most school districts want it, and then they've got to figure out how to justify it to the media. It's the media, because the minute they spend some money advertising themselves, talking about how awesome they are. Is this a waste of money? You're wasting this money. And they want to put an article in the local news about the school system's wasting money. For some reason, the media doesn't want to go cover how much money a private school or charter school uses to get voucher money. They won't do the same story. It's just fun to attack public schools, right? So they're up against that resistance block, right? And then they get the elected leaders. You can't use any money to talk about yourself, but all the competitor schools can, which I find to be a little bit of hypocrisy.
Let's talk about some of those tactics a little bit. Let me just ask you, for school districts that recognize the need to do this advocacy, what are 2 or 3 things that you would point them to immediately and say, you can do this on your own. You have the power to take control of this situation?
I think number one is get your C-team suite, get your leaders together, and then make sure you push it all the way up and down the entire school district. We're going to start competing for children. We're going to start to advocate that children should come here. You got to get everybody on board, right? That little initial step goes a long way. I mean, front desk workers, bus drivers, they're all ambassadors for the school. Teachers. Hey, everybody, I want to let you know it's everyone's job here to get and keep students and families. Let everyone know it's important to you and that we're going to focus on it. A lot of them don't even realize it's important. A lot of people that work in schools don't understand that when a student leaves, you lose resources. So let's get them educated on how the process works. Let them know what the game is, right? What the process is. I think that's great. Number 2, I really like it when the leader of the school board, the superintendent, actually goes on a lot of earned media campaign. What we mean is go talk to the news, go talk to the chamber, go talk to the Kiwanis, go talk to homeowner associations, get out there and tell people what you guys are doing right. Like, don't hide from it. Even if you're busy, you've got to carve some time every day to sell. And I heard this phrase years ago, Matt. Selling's a lot like shaving. You got to do a little bit every day. You start looking like a bum. So they need to go and sell every day. And they just need to make that a purposeful issue that we're going to advocate for people to come here. And then that'll start to radiate down. Some districts don't have a comms team, a communications department, but if you do, make sure that they are providing collateral material, a brochure that invites people to come take a tour, invites people to enroll. It's funny. We call it credenza-ware, Matt, where they make all these great brochures that look awesome and they're glossy and they're perfect and they really highlight the school. And then I find boxes of them sitting underneath the desk. So they're sitting on their credenza gathering dust. Give them away. Once you made them, make sure that they're out there. Use them. People get, these are really fancy brochures. I don't want to use them. I want to save them just for a rainy day or something. So actually start to put that material out. Don't be afraid to talk to people about how awesome you are. And I think that fundamentally will start a mind shift in your entire district that you guys can compete for students. And then you'll start to figure out a lot of the rest of it on your own.
So Brian, tell me about the strategies of working with parents in a little bit more detail. We already talked about the emotional parts of this, but I imagine there's other dimensions to the kind of relationship that school districts have to have with the parents and the other people in their community.
Matt, this is a great question because let's assume a school district wants to start advocating for themselves. Well, fundamentally, they do need, a 1-page or a 3-page document on each individual school in their district. You don't really recruit students to the district, you recruit them to an individual school. And so I'm going to go to this middle school, this high school, this special program. So you need to understand what your resources are. What do you have? And once you have that building block, then that's where it gets crazy. Because you have to actually penetrate and reach out to parents and meet them where they are, like psychologically and actually physically. How do you cut through all the noise? And I think the latest Harvard study said we get as many as 15,000 messages a day. Mm-hmm. And so how do you cut through all that white noise of all the, got to pay my bills, TV commercials, social media, all these things. So you have to be really diligent with your message and you can't get bored. And inevitably, where most people fail at recruiting a student is they stop after 6 contacts. They called Matt 6 times. They never got him. They went to Matt's house twice. They sent him a mailer, maybe, some sort of personal contact. I went to meet you at a Kiwanis club and then I quit. But maybe it was the 7th time that you finally signed up. And so you've got to be very patient and deliberate and not quit too soon. The science will tell you, you gotta reach out to these people somewhere between 7 to 21 times before they even realize that they have a choice to make. And so that's like 12 contacts. And then finally they go, oh yeah, I do got to make a choice. Maybe I could go to this school or this school. Then you're going to have a follow-up conversation using that document we just talked about. Explain to them why your school's awesome, and then ask them to make a choice. I mean, I make it sound kind of simple, but man, we will contact and work with parents that we meet at a, recruitment fair or at a daycare center or a library. We may follow up with them 20 to 30 times so they can finalize their decision and decide if that school is the right school for them. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair when somebody's making one of the most important decisions of this child's next year, maybe of their life, that you talk with them a lot and you let them not have to be rushed, but we get bored. We get impatient with our communication, and they've got to be real patient and just do it over and over until once again, I'm going to go back. I think the theme is when you're sick of saying it, they just started listening. Keep telling people why you're awesome.
Yeah, I heard you say that saying before, and it didn't quite sink in before. But what you've just said now I understand the third point that you were making. Number one, it's everyone's job. Number two, normalize advocacy. Number three, don't quit too soon.
I don't even want to add anything. I almost wanted to mute myself, Matt. That was so great. I'm going to put you on our website with a little thing, and there's going to be your points. No, that was really great. Yeah, thank you.
Brian, looking ahead, you've said that school choice is only going to continue to keep growing. What does that mean for public education 5 years, 10 years from now? And what would you most want superintendents, board members, community members to do now to prepare for that future?
Again, once the monopoly is gone, like we used to have Ma Bell, now we have all these little satellite and gigantic cell phone companies. The monopoly's gone away. We need to accept that the truth is we're going to have school choice. So we've got to start to advocate for how public schools, traditional public schools, will survive and prosper in that space. And so they need to accept it's happening. That's the biggest one. I think most of them have now. In the last couple of years, we've really seen a big transition to that. But they better start working with their state legislature to figure out fair ways in their individual state that they can more readily compete. Just a level, equal playing field with the competition. Don't try to snuff out competition. Don't be anti-competition. Just ask for the same rules, the same laws, the same requirements to be placed on your organization as on the others. That way you're all have the equal choice to provide the best education possible. I think that's a great foundation and a great start for where school districts need to head right now.
Brian Stevens, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you. You're a great intellect and really articulate about this, and I am so grateful for your time, and thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks again to my guest, Brian Stevens, co-founder and CEO of Caissa K12. If you found this conversation valuable, please follow the show and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps other community leaders find this space for shared learning and leadership. Community Catalysts is edited by Nick Living the Dream Tantillo. Our executive producer is John Little. I'm Matt Lehrman of Social Prosperity Partners. This podcast is about real-world leadership, and we'd love to include your voice in that conversation. So here's a question for you. What's a bold and hopeful objective, something you might call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, that you believe that your school district or municipality or organization should be working toward? I'm not asking for a policy memo, just a vision, something that stretches beyond the present moment and calls your community to something even greater. Call me and leave a message at 602-688-2724. Your insight just might be featured in a future episode. And if you or someone you know has experience in local or civic leadership and a story worth sharing, check out the podcast guest link in the show notes. We're always looking for people whose perspectives can inspire and inform others on a similar path. And here's a final thought before we go. Ryan reminds us that leadership is, at its heart, an act of imagination and invitation. The future doesn't just arrive on its own. It's something we have to envision, articulate, and then rally others to help create. That's what he called advocacy. In a time of uncertainty and change, it's not about how boldly we lead, it's about how we help others to find the courage to believe, to act, and to build together. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another Community Catalyst.